I woke up to the rumble of diesel engines, the kind of sound that doesn't belong on a quiet Saturday morning in the countryside. I stumbled to the window half asleep and froze. 50 buses, yes, 50 lined up on my gravel driveway, engines idling, people pouring out like ants from a kicked nest. They were carrying picnic baskets, folding chairs, even coolers. A kid ran across my field yelling about a water slide. Someone started setting up a grill near my hay barn. For a second I honestly thought I was dreaming. And then I saw her, Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, across the road wearing a floral sun hat, sunglasses, and that smug clipboard she carried like a royal scepter. She was waving her arms at the bus drivers like she owned the place. "Good morning," she yelled. "I told everyone you'd be fine with us using your land for the summer kickoff event. It's for community spirit." I just stood there with my coffee cup halfway to my mouth, wondering if this was a prank show. My land wasn't part of any HOA. I'd made sure of that when I bought it. It was private, fenced, clearly marked. But apparently Karen thought community spirit meant free real estate. By the time I stepped outside, buses were still rolling in, flattening the fresh gravel I'd just laid last week. She directed everyone where to park like a traffic marshal. I walked toward her, keeping my voice steady. "Karen, what exactly made you think you could send 50 buses of strangers onto my property?" She smiled like I was the unreasonable one. "Oh, come on. Don't be so uptight. The park's under renovation. You've got all this space. It's for everyone's enjoyment." I stared at her. Everyone's enjoyment. You mean my land, my fence, my well pump, my morning peace? She flipped a page on her clipboard. The HOA bylaws allow temporary use of adjacent lots for community events. "Adjacent doesn't mean owned by," I said flatly. "This isn't your jurisdiction." She turned away, pretending not to hear, shouting orders to people unloading tents. That was when I realized she wasn't ignorant, she was arrogant. Within an hour, my property looked like a circus. Kids were running through my garden, people arguing over parking, barbecue smoke mixing with exhaust. One guy even backed a bus into my workshop post. A woman tried to open my barn door, saying Karen said we can store the drinks in here. I held the door shut and said Karen said wrong. That phrase stuck in my head like a promise. Every part of this was wrong. Then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I heard her voice booming through a microphone. "Let's give a big thank you to Mr. Anderson for lending us his beautiful property." The crowd clapped. I walked up behind her, took the mic, smiled at everyone and said, "Correction, no one lent anything. You're all trespassing." The clapping died instantly. Karen tried to laugh to play it off. "He's just joking," she said, trying to pull the mic back, but I held on. "You have 10 minutes to clear this property," I said, calm but cold. "Or I'll start calling the sheriff, the towing companies, and maybe the local news." Her smile vanished. "You'll regret this attitude," she hissed. "The HOA has more power than you think." "Good thing I'm not part of it," I replied. That was when I knew the real battle had just begun. Hours passed and chaos spread like wildfire. The buses couldn't even turn around. People were sweating, confused, yelling at Karen for direction. I started closing the gate slowly, deliberately, letting her see what was coming. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't angry. I wanted her to bury herself in her own arrogance. But there's a moment, I'll admit, where I almost gave up. Standing on my porch, watching 50 buses crush my field, I felt completely powerless. I thought maybe I should just let them finish and leave. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe this really was just a misunderstanding. But then I looked down at the torn soil, the crushed flowers, the broken fence post, and it hit me. This wasn't about one event. This was about respect, about boundaries. And if I didn't draw the line now, she'd keep crossing it forever. So I took a deep breath, grabbed my phone, and called the sheriff. Karen overheard and panicked. "You can't do that. It's an approved event." "Approved by who?" I asked. "The HOA board," she snapped. I smiled. The HOA has no jurisdiction outside its boundary. That silence from her, that half-second when her mask cracked, was priceless. When the sheriff's cruiser finally rolled down my road, dust rising behind it, the whole crowd went dead quiet. Karen rushed forward, waving her clipboard like it was a badge. "Officer, thank goodness you're here. He's threatening our community event." The deputy looked around at the chaos. 50 buses, trash everywhere, my fence line destroyed, and said flatly, "This looks like trespassing." I handed him my property deed, the zoning map, everything. Non-HOA private land officer. They were invited without my consent. He turned to her. "Ma'am, is that true?" Karen stammered. "Well, yes, but he never said we couldn't use it. It's tradition. Being neighbors doesn't give you permission to host public events on private property," he said. And just like that, the dominoes fell. People started packing up. Bus drivers turned their engines back on. Some guests muttered about refunds. Karen kept shouting, "No one leaves. We have the park reserved all day." The deputy raised an eyebrow. "This isn't a park, ma'am. You need to tell everyone to leave." That was the moment her kingdom started to crumble. By sundown, the field was empty except for torn banners and trampled grass. Karen stood by her SUV, glaring at me. "You'll regret this," she said. "Everyone will know what kind of man you are." "I'm counting on it," I said quietly. She sped off, leaving a cloud of dust and a mess of broken pride. But she didn't stop there. The next morning she was back, this time with cars, families, even food trucks parked outside the gate. "We're back to finish what you ruined yesterday," she shouted from her window. I locked eyes with her and held up my coffee mug. "You can scream all you want, Karen, but this lock stays shut." She got out, recording me with her phone. "He's denying access to a public event, and she's trespassing again," I said into her camera. "This land is privately owned." The sheriff confirmed it. People started turning their cars around, realizing they'd been duped. Soon it was just her standing there, still filming, furious and alone. That night I uploaded my footage, her yelling her lies, her chaos, and the internet did what it does best. The bus lady went viral. Memes, jokes, parodies all over the place. HOA members were furious, not at me, but at her. The board tried to save face, but it was too late. The community turned on her, her reputation gone. Then she did something insane. She sued me for emotional distress, claimed I humiliated her. In court, her lawyer painted her as a victim. Sleepless nights, anxiety, ruined reputation. I didn't say a word. My lawyer pressed play on a video, 50 buses, Karen shouting orders, me calmly asking her to leave. The courtroom laughed quietly. Then came the footage of her screaming at the sheriff and the late-night protest she'd tried to organize where no one showed up. By the end, even the judge shook his head. "Mrs. Whitfield, you're lucky he isn't countersuing." Case dismissed. The gavel hit the desk, sharp, final, perfect. Karen sat frozen. I stood, nodded to the judge, and walked out without a word. Outside, reporters swarmed me. "Sir, any comment on the ruling?" I just said the truth always wins and kept walking. That clip went viral, too. By the next morning, Karen was gone. Her SUV sat crooked in the driveway, boxes piled on her porch. She'd lost everything, her position, her allies, her fake power. A few days later, I found a cardboard box at my gate. Inside were old HOA flyers, a broken nameplate that said President, and her clipboard. On top was a note. "You ruined everything I built. I hope it was worth it." I looked at it for a long moment, then dropped it off at the community center. "You might want to archive this," I told them. "It's part of local history now." By the end of that week, her house was empty. The HOA was dissolved, and for the first time in months, my land was quiet again. No more engines, no more shouting, just the sound of wind over the grass and the slow hum of peace returning. I stood by the gate one evening looking at the new locks glinting in the sunset and realized something simple, something I wish I'd known sooner. You don't have to shout to win a fight. Sometimes the loudest victory is silence.